6:00. We can call the meeting to order. Do we want to do roll call? And before we get started too much, sorry. Deb is online, Louisa, Todd, Julie, us and Lane. Okay. And then is there any other board or staff in the back that we need to recognize? And if anybody does speak, can you guys say your name beforehand, please? Community or public? Okay. Dave, you want to start
Dave
us off?
Martin,
Cheryl Hammond.
Lane Millington.
Jamie Dickey.
Kelly Tarbell.
Caitlin Benson. Jen McCall.
Thank you. All right, can I get a motion for the approval of the agenda? We do have two things. One would be that for the board oversight role, thanks Cheryl. Just because the person who's coming, the auditor who's coming, it wasn't exactly sure what time they could get here, so can we just sort of finish the article or the part we're on and then move to them in any order? Is anybody opposed to that? Or Dave also wanted to talk about possibly joining the Rural School Community Alliance, so we can add that under Communication C. So that would be 5C. Somebody want to make that motion? Anybody have any other? Thank you. Any other additions or deletions? Can we, Caitlin,
I'll
second it? I just didn't know if
Sorry.
it was little. I didn't know if Amber saw it. All right. And then approval of meeting minutes. We'll start with January 8th, 2025. That was our regular board meeting. Any,
I move to approve most of it.
thank you. Second, thank you. Any additions or deletions or corrections? Notice anything? All right, all those in favor of approving January 8th, 2025?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. January 15th, the special budget meeting minutes for those. Someone want to make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, seconded, thank you. Any discussion about those meeting minutes? None? All right, thank you. We will, all those in favor of approving January 15th, 2025?
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody opposed? Thank you. All right, and then, so we're gonna move the line 4A to when the auditor can get here. Hi, Katie. And then we will look at board comments.
Sure.
Sure.
Now, as we were doing the budget, it became clear that there was about this much of the budget that we had anything we could do anything about. Where we, over the last couple of years, we've had very large increases. The tuition we pay, obviously, there are more kids who are going to the high school and the schools are charging more. But then the other big item that was way up was the special ed. And in the short run, we know there's almost nothing we can do about special ed. Kids have IEPs and you have to do what's in the IEP. And over the past couple of years, Lane and Lauren before that, and our principals have been talking about the efforts they've been making to try to address kids' problems before they get to special ed. But it seems clear that whatever we've been doing hasn't been working very well. In that the number of kids we have in special ed seems to be much greater than both national and even within Vermont. We have more than we would expect. I mean, to some extent, I mean, we don't know, the kids are who the kids are, but it makes me wonder whether we need to be doing more in order to try to address the kids' problems before they get evaluated and referred to special ed. And I guess I'd like to hear look more again, not tonight, but as we move ahead, more about those efforts. And I think I would also say that when the time comes to evaluate superintendents and principals, all right, that I'd like to hear more about how many kids were newly referred, how many kids came off their plans. I mean, it's a rough number, but to me, it would be an interesting number. That's my comment.
I know I've asked this before, but I can't remember what the answer was. But the program that we had here that is housed at Ludlow for the TRSU, does that include, are those students from other districts that come here for that program that's included in the IEP numbers?
No, I
Is it?
think they would be
No.
if they should be incorporated in their homes.
Okay, just wasn't sure.
Yeah, their home district still pays for the special education services.
They're responsible for it. I will also piggyback on that. I think you're not wrong that I think reports that are coming out, I was just looking to see if I could find a different school district's answer to that same question. I think the number of students in special ed is rising nationally as well as in the state. And I think every school board is probably having that same conversation for sure.
Right, and some portion of it is dealt with COVID related still. I mean, there was a piece in the Times saying that Vermont is the 49th state in terms of how much kids have lost, comparing now to where kids were before COVID, that we're 9/10 of a year behind in our testing. And Maine was the only other state that did worse than us. And it seemed like in a lot of places, kids went back to school much later than they did, both our district and in general in Vermont. And so, I mean, yeah, I don't know what's causing, but it's obviously problems that are kid related.
Well, I think there's also a lot more like screening now than there was before. Trying to catch them before.
I see that it seems to be more in Vermont than in other states. It seems. I don't know. I mean, it's a rough number. I mean,
It's an expensive number for sure. Is that something we can put on principals' reports going forward, at least, not every month, obviously, but something that we could hear?
Just as a recommendation, it should be the special education director that's coming in.
And report that.
Because that's who's controlling the
Yeah.
operation. They just exist within the building.
Yeah, can we maybe schedule that for hopefully our March meeting's easy? And
Julie had.
yeah, Julie, go ahead.
This wasn't, can you guys hear me? Yeah. I'll make a comment related to Dave's comment. I don't support the mere fact of higher educate, number of IEPs in a school as being impactful on a principal or a superintendent's performance evaluation. I wouldn't support some sort of analysis like that, because if people in charge of higher ed have made a determination that under the law, students are entitled to services or qualify for support, that shouldn't be like a punitive thing for the superintendent or the principal in the district. I do support, though, elevating the conversation around what our special ed programs are doing and talking more topically about what it means when we talk about special education and how, the different ways that we're intervening and supporting students as a district, because I think the numbers are very high in the TRSU budget, and that doesn't mean that we're doing something incorrectly necessarily, but I think we need to educate the public and the community about what what it all means. Why is it so expensive, and sort of what things are we trying? And I know in previous meetings, Lane has talked about some ways or some ideas that he's had for maybe managing those numbers or the duration that students are in the program. So I support all of those things in terms of just elevating the conversation. But I do not think that it should be part of any sort of, personnel report. But that wasn't my comment. My comment was that today was the final day of the ski program in our district. And I just wanted to recognize how special it is that, our community is able to, our kids, so enriching for the kids in our district to be able to spend time doing that. I mean, people come from far distances to enjoy the ski mountain here, and it's right in our backyard. And so it's really wonderful that the staff and volunteers all come together to help students, enjoy, local students enjoy really an incredible asset in our community. So I just wanted to thank, the leaders in the buildings and the volunteers and parents in the mountain for making it all possible.
Thank you. And that is for sure, because that tradition has been,
Well, let's not say how long it's been.
since, I wouldn't know personally, but at least since the 70s. Comments, public comments. Anybody out in Zoom world?
Everybody on there is either a board member or.
Okay.
Can we go back to board
Oh,
comments?
sure, sorry, Jen.
So in the hopes of making our March meeting easy, the PTG met. So we were looking for ideas to get information out about the budget. So one of the things that we thought about, and Deb can help because she took notes and I didn't. But like putting our signs out that we had on that we did last time, like the date of the vote,
Yeah.
please vote. And one of the comments that was brought up too is that Lane is so eloquent at explaining everything that maybe we could get it in the paper to catch the people that aren't on Facebook, to get like the grandmothers and my mother and, those people that aren't on social media to kind of get them.
Haven't you already started that?
It's Chester Telegraph, Front Porch Forum's a little problematic. They don't have a lot of characters, so we're creating links on a new Facebook page that we're putting up to help communicate. And then I can put the link into the Facebook with a brief kind of narrative. So it's in kind of in
Yeah, we feel
process.
like that could from our journal to get like the Ludlow people. So, was there something, am I missing something, Deb? I feel like there's something else and I can't remember.
Yeah, we talked about trying to put together a pamphlet to hand out at local businesses and ask some of them to, have them. And we even talked about going to one of the senior breakfasts and just handing pamphlets out there and talking with folks.
Thank you. I think that's great. And we have to remember the PTG is different than the board, but I think still just presenting the vote, not how to vote, is important. I don't know that it's as strict for PTG, but I think just to be transparent, it's important. Do you guys agree? Yeah.
Yes. We also talked about, in our weekly newsletter, helping parents know how to register to vote if they haven't registered to vote, and talked about some of the ideas that we talked about, potentially going back to single grade levels, and putting some of those ideas out to folks and say, hey, this is why our budget is what it is, go out and vote.
And then the only thing with those signs, they can't be on public property. They have to be on private property.
Right.
That's important, because otherwise they get taken down and I get yelled at. I don't know who yells at me, but. All right, other board comments? Yep. All right. Public comments. We'll go one more time there. Nobody's on still?
No hands.
Nope. Okay. And then Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about your school community alliance thoughts?
Right. It's a group that's only now pulling itself together. There are a bunch of people from Northeast Kingdom where there are a lot of small schools, but also the Brattleboro area. And it looks like, again, that I think they're trying to figure out, again, how to respond to the governor's proposals that talk about how the average elementary school should be, was it 450 students? And then also the governance proposals from the governor, where clearly small districts would have minimal input into decisions that would be made in the larger, the Brattleboro, White River, Woodstock, Springfield district that we'd be part of, right? And so there's no cost for joining. They have a Zoom meeting, I think about once a month, maybe twice a month, where they're goal to put together information to distribute to the public and to the legislature. And so to me, I think that I don't see a downside to joining. I mean, in that it doesn't cost any money, and it lets us offer ideas for what we think the messaging ought to be. And then on the flip side, they would then give us ideas, something that we might use for letters to the editor or that individuals who are board members could choose, that things that we can't do as a whole board.
I'm sorry, what is it called again? The Alliance?
The Rural School Community Alliance.
And it came in from the not VSBA. We got it in our email.
Right.
Weeks ago.
Right. They sent an email. Somehow they had all our email
Right.
addresses.
So I mean, I would be curious to hear what your thoughts are. Do we have to join as a board, or is it an individual thing? Or is it board representation? Would it become a committee? That's what I'm unsure of.
Their goal is to have boards join, and then to have members, of those boards who choose to participate. But I'm sure that if we chose not to join as a board, that they would be happy to have individuals join instead. I would move that we join as a board.
I would second that.
Sorry, whose voice was that?
Katie.
Katie, sorry. Every time somebody talks, a big shuffle happens. So, so we have a motion and a second. Other people have thoughts and comments before?
I mean, I'd like to look into it a little bit more before we vote whether we're going to join or not. We can have the next meeting.
Can you re-forward that email to everybody now that they know kind of that we're thinking about it and what it would look like?
Yeah, I'll also forward a draft that they've drafted, like a 9-page document explaining kinds of things that they're in favor of. It's still a draft.
Perfect. And then Lane, can you find out as a board, what our procedure would be for that if we're joining? And is it like a committee? I don't know how that would work.
I can double check. My guess is it would be a committee.
That sounds good. All right. Does that seem reasonable to everybody? So I think the motion was to join. We should vote on that. So if people are voting, I want to make sure this is clear. If we are voting yes, we are voting on Dave's motion to join the alliance tonight. If we vote no, we are going to put it on the agenda and hope for some more information in between now and our March meeting. So that is the motion and how it will look when we vote. Julie, is your hand still up or up again, huh?
Up again.
Thanks.
So I really appreciated laying your thought leadership on what we are seeing in the legislature and sort of how you are digesting it with respect to our small district here. And so that's been really helpful to me to read. So I guess my question is, I mean, do you think that this group is, sort of a helpful partner in thinking through issues that are impactful to us as a rural district? Or, I mean, do you have any information on this organization?
I think it's something that, if you want to do some information gathering, I'm happy to check in and sit through a meeting with them and just see what it's about. And I'll be able to come back with some more information. My guess is, it actually kind of goes along with the next article on the budget, is that the state legislature is really the one that has the power to make the changes that we're all so worried about, for better or for worse. And not through their own fault, but they tend to get a little bit separated from their local communities. Right? When was the last time that you talked with, one of your reps? And so a group like this, the power of it is the reps are really good. They will listen if people are showing up on the doorstep and wanting to communicate with them, or asking them to come to one of their meetings so that they can, talk about what their concerns are. So if that's the focus of the group, I would say that that's a really positive thing. Because the only way we're going to have impact in terms of what's happening at the state is through the legislature.
And I think I would add, I would favor going ahead and joining now, because things could move quickly in Montpelier. And if we adding our helping them distribute the word, I think can't hurt.
Yeah, and just to further these points, I think it's so important that our legislators hear from us. And if this is, an advocacy group in support of our small, rural public schools and communities, I think it's really smart to band together and make our voice amplified on such an important topic.
I guess, do we know how this group gets out to our picture, like how they then communicate?
I don't know if they are.
Yeah, we don't know that part, right? Like, we don't know that yet.
No, I mean, again, I attended by Zoom the meeting they had a couple of weeks ago, and it was mostly all board members. I mean, it wasn't being run by superintendents, and they were just again talking about writing letters to the editor, getting articles in. They're talking about potentially hiring a lobbyist, but that would take money that they don't now have, and that we're not going to give them. But no. I mean, in general, I think that right. Other districts aren't, and the question is whether they'll get something from individuals or whether it'll continue to be a volunteer organization.
So I had kind of thought, about the small schools and how I feel that Montpelier is trying to strip us the boards and local control, strip it completely. Because I feel really kind of helpless as a member right now. Like, I think they've taken too much, and it's way too big up there. It's too complex, and I kind of thought, I was like, I wonder if all the little school boards wrote a letter, and it was all presented up at Montpelier. It's this is what we're all seeing. Every school board. This sounds like a good platform to be able to have, that unity, the support, I'm assuming probably somebody can be, when they organize, that there'll be a speaker, maybe they take all the letters that we write, and because I'm thinking they can be that advocate for us because they don't listen to us.
Yeah, I don't think.
Sorry.
Oh, no,
I talked a lot.
go ahead, no.
That I mean, not many people know that part of the governor's proposal was to reduce the number of teachers per school. And there, he had a little table, so if a school had about 80 kids, it should have 5 classroom teachers. You know, we have 9 classroom teachers in each school, so that, and by going to the foundation budget, they haven't talked yet about whether the board from Brattleboro and Springfield and all would be able to add money to it or not, right? But we certainly wouldn't, in Ludlow and Mount Holly, we wouldn't be able to decide whether we wanted to have 9 teachers or 8 teachers or 5 teachers. And again, so I mean, it's related in that I think that's the kind of issue that I'm expecting that this group will be making more clear to the legislature and to the importance of that decision being made locally rather than in Montpelier or wherever the headquarters of the new group would be.
Go ahead, Maria.
What about if we have somebody from the representative, the House of Representatives, to come to one of our meetings and speak and answer our questions and see how we feel? I'm part of the Ludlow Republican group, and I do know some of them, so I can reach out and have somebody speak. You know, maybe they can hear our feelings, and he could report back and see if we can get somebody listen to us.
Do you want to reach out to all of our representatives?
Sure, I only know a couple, but that I know,
Right.
with their cell phones. But yeah, I could work on that. Sure.
That way we would have a balance.
Sure.
I think that's important.
Okay.
I think that would be, I'm a little nervous about saying in March just because, but I also hear what Dave's saying about timeliness. But I would also, just because I want to make sure we bring it back to that we do have a motion that we can't forget to vote on. Julie?
Dave, I just quickly tried to Google the organization and I didn't immediately get a website. Can you describe a little bit about what the policy platform of the group is? Because I think we're sort of all assuming that our goals are aligned, but it would be helpful to know what exactly they're advocating for.
Yeah, I think the website that I looked up when I had just done a quick search is under the Vermont Rural Education Collaborative.
Okay.
And it's their new alliance.
Okay, it's the Rural School Community Alliance. I don't know if they have a website.
Yeah, it's on here.
They do have a website. I can share it in the chat.
Is that the same thing that Dave?
I think it's the same thing.
Rural School Community Alliance. It just moves
Put it in the chat.
where it's coming from.
I mean, they list their concerns that because the governor, the school consolidation and closing small schools and taking the decision away from localities. And maybe it wasn't clear whether Montpelier would even force the regional districts to do closures or not. They discussed, again, the governance issue. They called it the democratic process. Then, again, believing in that local people should be able to make the decision. Let's see, funding proposal. They want to make sure that the Brigham decision that made, okay, and we're unusual in a small district, and that most of the small districts have very low property values, and we're helped a lot by the Brigham decision to let them upgrade their schools. Of course, that's less of an issue. You know, we were sort of happy with the old system where we could spend our own taxes. But in general, they want to make sure that districts have equal access to funding. They don't like the expansion of school vouchers, right? That, I don't know if you've seen it, it's hard to know exactly what the governor's proposal would do, because, right now, only districts like ours that don't have a high school get choice. He's proposing sort of a hybrid where everybody would get some level of choice and perhaps participate in a lottery to see whether you could send your kid to one of the other schools or not. Is that enough of a summary? I mean, I'll forward.
Yeah, I think all the information you have, if we can re-forward it, that would be good, because now we're sort of on, we've had the conversation, we can attach old information to new information. So we do still have the motion. Are we ready to go forward on that? Do we want to clarify it, or is everybody
Well, I'm
good?
sorry, I thought Lane said he was gonna go to a meeting and see.
I could.
But we still have a motion, so we have to vote on
Right.
whether we're gonna do it tonight, which some people have voiced they are feeling timeliness is of the essence.
Right.
Other people are a little more, let's find out more about it, so we
Is
have
it
to.
legally, is it okay as a board to join that? Are we allowed to do
I'm
that?
assuming that if other boards are, then yes, but I do think Lane would have to check
Right.
tomorrow to make sure. And I think people can represent individuals, like you went the other day, and as long as you're representing the board, and there's not three of us there. So, do we have other thoughts about it before we vote? All right, so all of those in favor of joining tonight, and can we amend the motion to include something along the lines of?
Lane will check with our attorney
Yeah.
and make sure that it's an appropriate thing for, or under the law.
Perfect. So are we all clear on what we're voting on? All right. And so all those in favor of joining the alliance tonight, pending Lane's approval-ish tomorrow, give or take a day or two for things to happen, all those in favor?
Aye.
And anybody opposed? Okay, so because we're in Zoom, we have to do it by individual. So Dave,
Aye. Yes.
sorry. My brain. Maria,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Katie,
No.
Jen,
No.
Julie,
Yes.
Katie.
Yes.
Did I miss anybody? No. Okay. Amber, can you do a count? Because that's a lot of math for me tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got 5-2 and you haven't voted, so,
Right. I don't have to if it's
but
not.
yeah, it's 5-2, so
Yeah.
5-2 in favor.
So we will join pending Lane's checking it out. And will you forward all the information you have? And Lane, will you let everybody know as soon as you know? And Maria, if you're looking into representatives, can you keep us in the loop on that too?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Kelly, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Because I have to make notes specifically of the two people that voted it down.
Yeah.
I know one of them is Jen, but you referred to two different Katies and there's two different votes. I just need to know which one was the yes.
Caitlin Benson.
Thank you.
All right. Katie Benson was the no. I just want to make that clear too. If it wasn't, sorry. All right. Now that we've had that chaos, Lane.
Actually, there's a million things that we could talk about, but I'll try to narrow it down. And interestingly, the discussion that was just had about special education and what could be done is a part of the report. So I can talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. I think the important thing right now in terms of the legislature, the legislative session, is they seem to be, things are getting started. They have what they think they should be working on. And I sent the list. Obviously, education financing is the big thing. They're considering changing the common level of appraisal system. even after they kind of made it really obscure this year so that people couldn't easily weed out what was common level of appraisal increases and what was school district increases. They're talking again about funding school construction. This one was interesting. The General Assembly actually spent some time seeking the advice of legal counsel on who has the authority to form school districts. So in other words, being able to force districts together or not, and yes, the legislature does have that authority. And so they're also talking about the foundation formula. We call it the yield right now. It's kind of the equivalent of the yield. It's how much they would give per student for us to be able to provide a basic education. They're looking at a bill to create cell phone free schools, and there was a review of the universal free meals program and some discussion about removing because it is within the education fund. They seem to be in a state of they know what they want to investigate and potentially work on, but they're in kind of information gathering, right? Learning about it to be informed, so that they're making the best decisions that they can. Which I think goes back to a little bit of what David was bringing up, is this idea that since they're in learning mode right now, this is the time to communicate and start to plant those seeds and the good ideas. As far as the governor's plan is concerned, there was almost no reaction, which was curious. Right, it came out and basically what I got from the articles and things that I read was people were like, there's not enough information there. We'll wait with an open mind. So that's a telling sort of response. But I think they're really tentative and confused right now a little bit about it. The governor's plan seems to be trying to move things very fast, right? Everything will be in place, not next year, but the year afterwards, which is a little bit silly. But I think the idea is that if they move fast enough, it'll avoid a lot of the kicking and screaming and temper tantrums that people usually throw to try to, get what they want out of the legislators. I think one of the biggest things, especially if we're in a group like this or we're having communications with the legislature, is to provide them with a viable alternative. Right? Because right now, this is all I got. Most of them are not educators, right? Most of them are going to hear from specialists or maybe people that went out and did some research at the request of the legislature. And not that it would be necessarily intentional, but a lot of those folks can be biased, just like all of us, in terms of when we're researching and looking at data. And so it could shift kind of how they're looking. So that's kind of where the legislature is. Typically what will happen, what I've seen in the last couple of years, is as they get a month or two in, half of these will drop off, and then they've got the priority items that they're working on. And that's when it becomes important to kind of really pay attention to how it might impact our district here. In terms of special education, throw some numbers out there. I was doing some research a month or so ago. Historically, the percentage of a district's population that's on an IEP nationwide and in Vermont is 14%. It has gone up a little bit since COVID. It's risen to 15.7 at this point in time, but that still puts us at almost twice, what that national average is. So
Sorry, where are those numbers from? Were they from like 2 years ago? Like everything's always delayed in state numbers and national numbers, so we're looking at current numbers, those might be 2 years old, and
yeah, the 15.7 is recent, but may not include Vermont. It's a national, because again, Vermont, as you said, is in kind of a little bit of hot water with the feds because they're not providing the data that they should to make sure that we get our federal grants and funds. But yes, the 15.7 is a national. Prior to COVID,
to be clear, I don't think I said
it was always 14, but it was 14 at
I don't think I said that. I think I said we're getting higher, but.
So one of the things that we did is the principals have been great. They've split up into work groups, and one of them is a student support work group. So that encompasses special education, our multi-tiered system of supports, and child find activities. And so they're sitting down, they're taking a look at ways to be able to improve these so that we have a better impact on kids in terms of their performance. But it's done under this guise and this goal of student independence. There's a lot of really good interactions between special education teachers and students. The problem is that they are helping the students get through the curriculum and learn. What I see, and this is common, is that they're not helping the students acquire the skills themselves so that they don't need the support anymore. And so it's this trying to find a way to make that subtle shift in how services are delivered. So over the course of time, students are getting on less restrictive IEPs or coming off them completely. We have had a fair amount of success with it at OSSD. We were at 22% rise in it, a percentage point a year. It took about 3 years of doing the work. And I think they were down around 16% after 3 years work. And that was during which was a little bit more difficult. So it is possible, but it'll take a little bit of time. But I think I also would be remiss if I didn't point out that, we're talking about the importance of this. And one of the things that was cut last year during budget time was an assistant director for special education. 30% of a school population is a high number. It's too high. But you have one person who is managing all that. And we really kind of need a second person to be able to come in who can take the plans. Hopefully, my idea is that the principals are going to run it in absence of that assistant director, but take those plans, work directly with the staff, provide the coaching, the training, and kind of make sure that people are living up to the standards and the goals that we're trying to achieve. Related to this is the loss due to COVID. And again, it comes back to funding. A lot of the districts that did really, really well, it's because they used their ESSER money and they also had their own funding for extended time on learning, right? If you're behind, you can't just go to your regular school day for six and a half hours and expect to necessarily get caught up. But if you build additional time on at the end of the day for the students that are behind to catch up, then you can do it, right? You're giving them the extra time above and beyond what they should be learning right here and now. And so a lot of districts were very successful because they had the funding to do so. They have really strong summer programming that was academically based. The problem with Vermont in the districts that I saw, including our own, was it was hard to get teachers, especially after COVID when they were exhausted, to want to come in and do that work. And so instead of being academically focused, they were focused more on social needs and social development. So a lot of parts and pieces there, but I'm happy to answer anything that's in the superintendent's report or other questions that might be related to it.
I have one quick question about the CLA changes. Are there any details yet about what those changes might entail, or just that it will be changing?
They're looking and based upon the information that they're gathering, they're looking at trying to find a better way, I guess, of doing it. I don't know if a better way means burying it within the school taxes so that you can't separate it, or if it means pulling it completely out and making it as clear as possible. I don't know if the VASBO meeting.
That's Friday, so I'll probably.
Yeah, so the business managers around the state get together just like the superintendents do and meet about once a month. So hopefully that's one of the things that they might be discussing, and Cheryl will have some information to come back with.
Yeah. Emily Kornheiser, who's the chair of the education committee, is speaking at our meeting, so that should be.
Oh, great.
Maybe one idea I had heard was that you smooth it out, so you don't make the changes quite as quick. I mean, it's already, I don't remember the number, some number of years average, but
yeah.
Some people have thought it should be a larger number of years. So you don't get up one year and down the next.
Is what you're talking about right now in lieu of the concept of the foundation formula?
No, I think David is touching on it. So the common level of appraisal relates to how the values of properties in a town change over the course of a year. So that if your assessment is here, but property values is actually here, you've got to pay taxes on that difference. The state does a big yearly survey to figure out what that difference is. And the problem is what happens with the CLA is, right, you saw it after COVID, Randolph, the property values doubled. You know, so what did that do to our taxes? And it had nothing to do with the school district. But people get a little confused because the two are bundled together. The impact of both are bundled together in that school tax that you pay. But yeah, it has a tendency to kind of swing back and forth a bit. And so, you know, David's thought of maybe they're trying to smooth it out is not a bad one.
All right. Other questions or comments for Lane? And you're keeping an eye for the auditor, just, okay.
He's waylaid because he's presenting at another meeting. He thought he would go right away. And he just emailed me that he hasn't been on yet, so.
Oh, okay.
We're still good.
All right. Principals report, I think it's Deb's. What? Still can't.
Let me share my screen. Hang on.
Yeah, let me know if you have any trouble.
We are here. The only thing is we have to hear somebody knocks, and I can't because I couldn't hear you talking right next to me.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so Craig and I came up with this format, and this is our second time using the format. So we have very little in our principals report. We both have enrollment. There, we had 2 new students register and 1 move out, and so those numbers are new. And then we'll review our NWEA winter MAPS assessment for you. So principals report, we finished our skiing. This was the end of our day today. At Okemo, we had waffles thanks to the PTG, rode up the chairlift, and just amazing to see how much growth the kids actually make in such a short amount of time. I think every student went up on the lift this year. We had kids up on the bubble lift, and they just had an absolute amazing time. And, you know, to watch them grow so quickly in the area of skiing is just, you know, a joy and a highlight of my career as an educator here in Vermont. So just wanted to share that with you. Here are my enrollment numbers with some changes in certain classes. The 2 students who just moved into Ludlow are in the 1-2 and the 3-4 classrooms, so bumping those numbers up even more than they were already. So definitely high numbers in those 2 classrooms specifically. This next slide is our winter math MAPS assessment. Our growth was in the 69th percentile, our achievement in the 67th percentile. And, you know, Ludlow's goal was to increase the number of students in the blue and the green area by 20% by the end of 2026. And when I do the calculations for that area for us, we went from 45% of our students meeting or exceeding proficiency in the fall to 59% of students meeting or exceeding in the winter. So hopefully we are on a good path to meet that goal. Next slide is our reading. Unfortunately, our median growth was in the 50th percentile and our achievement in the 53rd, and there was a decrease for reading. So in the fall, we had about 50% of our students meeting or exceeding the proficiencies in reading, and in the winter, only 39% of our students met or exceeded that. So Craig and I are looking a little bit more deeply into why that might be the case. This next slide is just a quadrant by grade, and you can see us as a school. So in the math, you can see most of the classrooms in Ludlow are in that high growth, high achievement quadrant. And then in reading, you can see there's a little bit more scattered, and each dot represents a grade level. And then, Craig, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Deb. So we have not had any change in enrollment since we last reported in December. So, but that's what it was and what it is. So unless you guys have questions about that, go to the next one. So this is growth and achievement from fall to winter in mathematics at Mount Holly School. So you can see in the fall, 75% of our kids were proficient or above. That's what that first green bubble is to the left. And then just ticked up 1 point. And the growth is the line above, and that's at 70th percentile. So really, really strong results in math. That's definitely exceeding the goals that we set last year for the next 2 years. So we're hoping to keep building on that.
Ready to move to the reading, Craig?
Actually, before you do that, can you scooch back one, I think, to the enrollment? So I'm just looking.
Yeah.
You have 99 kids and 83 took it. Is it because pre-K is 12?
Correct.
Is that math?
It's like it's an 87.
All of our kindergarten through 6 kids took it, but that is a little weird.
Because I don't know. I'm just saying 4 kids in a small sample size could make a difference too. So one way or the other, I'm just noticing.
Is it a one-day test, like maybe they were out?
No. It's a window for the month of January, and we have an operational report within the MAPS NWEA system. So I got confirmation that all of our students took it. Kelly, I'll have to look into that. That's a good catch.
Yeah, I just noticed on the
Yeah.
side it says 83, and that's different.
All right, I'll keep going forward back. Do you want me to go up to the reading, Craig?
Yep. So if you want, is that the math one?
So Craig, did you change anything in the math curriculum? Do you think, is there a reason why things went so well? Other than good teachers?
Well, definitely ongoing professional development. We've had Everyday Math 4 is our math program, and we've had that in place much longer than we had EL. So familiarity and the expertise of our teaching in that. EL, which is our language arts, this is our 2nd year. And so, that's one thing that Deb and I did a little speculating on is, will we get better results as we get into years 2, 3, 4? The one tool that's been helpful, and I think that we didn't talk about this, but or at least recently, but the IXL math tool is highly individualized. So we are able to be getting very regular diagnostic assessments of what specific skills kids have in math at each grade level and what makes sense for them to be working on intensively to try to build up to the next level in terms of the math scope and sequence.
And that has been something that at Ludlow we have implemented on a regular basis, and we have monthly leaderboards, and kids get to pick prizes out of a basket at the end of the month based on the number of questions they answer correctly in math. And it creates a personalized pathway for students. So it reinforces the skills that students are working on. So definitely very beneficial, as you can see from our math results here.
And then this quadrant's telling us in Mount Holly, it's really almost totally in the high growth, high achievement. There's a little bit below that line, the box below, which is high achievement, lower growth. So some room for improvement there to just keep the pace of growth moving. And we'll see that. You can go to the next slide, Deb. That's kind of where we're a little disappointed. I mean, if you look at the achievement for the winter, we're at the 65th percentile, so we're well above our goals, but that is a drop from the fall achievement of 74th percentile. And so that pinkish growth level, that's indicating we're not getting the same velocity or the same rate of growth in the area of reading as we did in math. And if you want to go to the next slide, Deb, that shows it on this same kind of a chart. So that lower quadrant to the right is the high achievement, but lower growth. We really want to be in that upper right as much as possible. But these, I mean, if, depending on whether you're looking at the NAEP results or statewide VTCAP, a lot of schools in Vermont are, not even getting to 50% achievement in math and reading. So I think Deb and I are heartened that the research-based programs that we have that we're implementing are making a difference, and certainly our teaching staff is very dedicated and very committed to meeting our goals.
So you have the Read 180 at Mount Holly, right?
As a tier 3 intervention. So that's an example of kids that are on IEPs that have really much more severe learning challenges when it comes to reading. That's a research-based program. We're barely into it. Like we started in mid-year last year in January. So the data there, I'm not ready to report on that to say, hey, I think that's really making a difference. What I will definitely say enthusiastically is kids who I've known for years in the upper grades who have been not enthusiastic readers, who've been reluctant, and I'm observing on a regular basis kids really clamoring to say, hey, can I read next? And being like visibly motivated by some of the materials that are part of that program. If you're, say, a 5th or 6th grader and you're reading a year or two below, a lot of times the materials can feel like not that relevant, whereas these are high interest and it makes the engagement much more interesting, I think, for the kids. So, and that's just one example of one part of the program, but it's a research-based program. So in the past, the main research-based program that we've had for reading intervention has been the Wilson program. So that tier 3 IEP level, supplementing it with this program is, I think, going to be helpful.
Greg, next slide.
Is there another one?
Nope, that's the end.
Are there questions for Deb or Craig?
I was just curious as we look at like the presented data from Ludlow and Mount Holly, also just looking at the enrollment, the intensive needs students are included in the enrollment for Ludlow, and if maybe for the next one for Mount Holly, just how it's like asterisked, how many students.
Yeah, so Katie, they're actually enrolled in our school as Ludlow Elementary School. They're not part of the assessment data that was shared. So even though they push in and they're part of classrooms, they are not actually part of the assessment window. We don't report out on their scores.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Thank you.
That way you're getting some apples to apples.
Yes.
That's a great question.
Other thoughts?
I would just comment that I'm really pleased by what we're seeing in sort of the like real-time impacts of the continuous improvement plans. So I really appreciate the hard work that's going on in both buildings.
Okay, I like a good clap. All right, curriculum report.
Hi, everybody. I'm Louisa Millington. I'm the new interim curriculum director. If I can share my slideshow, let's see if I can do this. Looks like I can. I'm just gonna move this one. So just a second. Here. Can you see my presentation? Yes? Okay, so just a couple of words to introduce myself. I, of course, switched jobs in the middle of the year. I have been a principal before this one, and prior to that, I was a curriculum director for Baden-Hill Valley Supervisory Union for about 10 years. And prior to that, I was a math and science middle and high school teacher at Arlington Memorial Middle School. So nice to meet all of you. I know I have a short time for this presentation. I tend to put too much on my presentation, so if I go too far, please tell me to stop. So just a couple of updates on current initiatives. We wrapped up APD Day district-wide on January 21st. We collected a survey feedback from the entire staff, and it was very well received. This was the different part of this in service was the attendance of paraeducators who underwent their own training with synchronous webinars, and they also enjoyed it. Other initiatives in the district. We continue our partnership with the Agency of Education, the Action Research. These are all initiatives that Emma Vastola started, and I'm continuing to nurture. So this cooperation with the Agency of Education is geared toward looking for alignments and eventual gaps between the Common Core and the new ELA curricular resource. This is an ongoing initiative. We will continue to work with them. AOE reps, the content experts in social studies, science, and ELA actually come to the district and work with a group of our teachers, a curriculum committee, for a couple of days, analyzing module by module the curricular resource and see what standards are covered. Another initiative, ongoing initiative, is this cooperation with the STEM Center. Is a coach. Her name is Lee Butler, who is training our early literacy teachers, and the same coach will be helping our teachers in the program of Read Vermont. We have been selected to participate in this incredible initiative, and the coaching from the Read Vermont is offered at a deeper level. They're still proctored by the STEM Center, but at a deeper level, more personalized and geared toward improving the competence of our teachers, who are already amazing. But they will be provided with additional resources to help our students move forward. We have prepared letters that will be sent home by the end of this week to be in compliance with Act 139. Lane sent out a message to the families today to inform them that we will be sending letters to families of the children who are not performing at the grade level as of the winter testing. And most of the schools have been using DBELS as a screener. And so a few families will receive these letters, but just to let you know, we continue to screen all the teachers constantly and monitor their growth, regardless of their testing performance. And some of the schools are small enough to have that individualized attention. We have completed the winter assessments, of course, I just spoke about this, and we're planning for the marching service. And I also a little mentioned that the January service, we continue to offer some more training in math through the OGAP, which is about proportionality, fractions, percentages, and ratios. So this is just to let you know what's going on in the district. And again, kudos to my predecessor, Emma Vastola, for starting all these initiatives. I'm going to the next slide. So again, I tend to go a little too far. If I talk too much, let me know, because I love this stuff and I've been doing it for many years. Okay, so I spoke briefly about the January 21st in service. The feedback showed that the teachers really appreciate the time together to work on real issues and real things and initiatives that they should be working together. I'm monitoring their feedback and I'm getting hints of more professional development that's needed and things that we will bring in probably during the summer, and we will offer more opportunities for the teachers. So we will continue to use this format because it was very well received. I'm going to show you now some graphs. So now I apologize for the repetition. I know the principals did a great job introducing you to the meaning of these assessments, the screeners. So I did put together a slide in case you had questions about what each screener was. You have heard from the principals. I'm going to go through this really quickly and then show you some graphs. So now the graphs I will show you will be comprehensive of all the schools in the district, whereas Deb and Craig showed you individual, they own individual schools. So we have the DBLs. It is my understanding, because I only been 1 month into this job, that the DBLs was introduced 1.5 years ago, and all the schools are using it. And really, this is a screener that is assessing the ability, the skills of the students against state and national standards. MAPS, for those of you who are familiar, is an adaptive assessment that shows really the individual skills of a student. So as they answer one question correctly, the next one is going to be harder and harder until they hit a plateau, and really shows the growth of a student over time. And this is something Craig was talking about in his when he was displaying the graphs. And then this newly adopted assessment, IXL. IXL for math, it really gives you a window inside the skills of a student, and really helps us to target their gaps, if any, and try to push them forward when they're already mastering some skills at grade level. Before I go on, do you have any questions about these assessments? No.
Look at hands.
Sorry? Oh, is that a question?
No, I'm sorry. I was just making sure, because we can't see the other people in the group any longer because your screen is up. That's all.
Thank you. Again, stop me. I tend to go too far. So what's the goal of putting all this together? And we have a software that's called the Forefront, where all these assessments go together, and we can actually extrapolate the profile of a student and identify what intervention the student needs. So this is like to have the big picture, right? So I'm going to show you some graphs, and the graphs will show you how different these screeners are. And so those bar graphs you're going to see will look very different, although they're perhaps assessing, I don't know, math or literacy, but it's a different concept, and they are focused on different standards. So I'm going to show you the first one, and again, this is district-wide. This is DBLs, and don't be thrown off by the 6th grade red bar in the second column, because at the time this was generated, the 6th grade assessment for winter wasn't completed. So there was only one student who took it, and it wasn't doing well. So that's why you see the big bar at the bottom. This assessment, again, we're relatively new to using this one. So I'm sure as we have a better understanding of this one, will be more diagnostic. At this time, it showed a little regression between the fall assessment and the winter assessment. So it will be interesting to see what happens when we do the last assessment and do some comparisons. So then we go to the reading. I know you have seen already the MAPS reading for the 2 schools, but this is for the district. And if you look at those percentages, these are not percentiles, these are percentages. We converted those, so to have some equity over the district. And these percentages, I worked in several districts, they are not bad at all. What you're not seeing in this graph are the students approaching proficiencies, when you add those into the picture, these are actually not bad at all. So I was really pleased to put this together, although as seen as individual percentages may seem a little low, they're not low at all. So the district is doing relatively well. Again, stop me if you have questions. This was for reading. This is for math, and although the graph shows these smaller columns was just because on the y-axis I needed to have a wider range. But you see that in some grades, the proficiency of students district-wide, for instance, in fourth grade is almost 61% reaching proficiency. And again, you're not seeing those students approaching proficiency, which also is actually very promising. So if we continue to do targeted intervention, these percentages will go up. And then the last one, for the newly adopted screener, is for math, and these are individual performances. As I said before, this is very diagnostic of the single student. And again, don't be thrown off by like the 9th grade and so forth, because the goal is to use this screener K through 12, but we are not there yet. The teachers have indicated that they could use more training, so I'm already looking into opportunities for them to receive more training on how to properly use this screener over the summer. So the data I was able to extrapolate with the help of our IT director, Julie, and data manager, Rob, shows this overall picture of the district at this time. So our conclusions, again, with putting all of this together, is to target intervention for the students and help them succeed. What questions do you have?
Doctor, I just wanted to, could you go back to that last page that had the graph with the 9th grade? Just wondering why the 9th grade.
Yes, the Excel one, absolutely.
And nice to meet you and welcome, by the way.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to meeting you guys in person. And let me just see if I can go back. Of course, it's not allowing me to go back. Why not?
It's just the lowest one, the 9th grade.
Yeah.
That's all this question.
Yes, just let me see if I can just log off for a second. I'm going to do it right now. So I don't know what's going on.
How many more schools in Vermont help?
The exit presentation. Is this the IXL one that?
Yep, the very last page with a graph on it.
Yes. Can you see it? View?
There we go.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on.
17.
Yeah. So I could talk a little bit. There's some up and down, right? Which is because you got different kids being tested. I'm not sure about what the testing sizes are, but you do see a decline starting in which grade?
Here. So, I mean, if you don't consider the 8th graders, really it starts declining after the 3rd.
Yeah. So, but 5th, 6th, and 7th is this step down, and this is common in Vermont schools that don't have middle schools, right? Because those are your middle school grades.
Yeah.
And then typically, hopefully what would happen if this is a typical, follows a typical profile of Vermont schools without middle schools, is when you get 10th, 11th, and 12th, it's not going to go up a lot, but it starts an increase again. So it's got this really weird shape to it. And so this is one of the reasons why, early on, especially over on the Green Mountain side, we were talking about trying to get the 6th graders over there and building a real, middle school program because their needs are just so dramatically different in terms of all the transitions they're going through at that age. But this is not atypical. Doesn't mean we don't have to work on it, but.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Louisa? Anybody else? No? All right.
Good job.
We're up 2 people, so.
Somebody just came in. I don't see him.
Facilities, Todd, take it away.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'll try to be quick. Ludlow-Mount Holly, Ludlow, Deb has everything set up for the lead water testing. It's our 3-year testing time for everybody in the state. So that's set up there. PFAS, we won't be testing for lead at Mount Holly because they do all that testing through the PFAS, and that quarterly testing is coming up. So Craig will be setting that up with our water people up there. We had some issues, not with the boiler. So I see there's a boiler update on the agenda. So if you don't mind, I'll just roll that right into my report. There wasn't really an issue with the boiler. The boiler at Mount Holly is running great. What we had was some individual classrooms that had some unit ventilator issues that were unrelated to the boiler project. Just was unfortunate that it happened all at the same time. So we got somebody from CTI in there, spent a day and corrected everything. Except for the 2 units in the cafeteria. It's going to take a little bit more work than what he could do in one day. We also had some issues with the building management system, but come to find out, it wasn't really CTI's issue. It was more dealing with some firewalls and some IT stuff because of the new security that's been put in. So I'm fortunate that I get to speak with our IT director on a regular basis, and we kind of got that squared away, and Craig now has access to that. And checking that, I checked it just before the meeting started, and every classroom at Mount Holly was within 1 degree of their set point. So except for the cafeteria, because we have no access to that. So everyone's running perfectly. When I did check the boiler this morning, I'm still blown away by how well that runs. I don't know what the temperature was at Mount Holly, but it was 1 degree in Chester. I'm assuming it was much colder than that on the mountain. And that boiler was still running at 28% of max. So it wasn't even a quarter of what it could use for propane. So, and maintaining all the temperature. So there was a couple of hiccups, but it wasn't to do with the boiler. Just I want to be clear with that. It was unfortunate, but we got them all taken care of, and they did that this week. Jamie, it's funny that, not funny, but funny that coincidental that you mentioned about small schools, especially in southern Vermont. So I was on a Zoom meeting today. I told Cheryl this, that with the facilities directors, and a couple guys were talking, we were waiting for visit, and the one guy was from Burlington, and they're talking about doing a big addition on 2 of their elementary schools. And of course, they're building a new high school, and money's no object. And we struggled to have money for our budgets to pass. And it showed how much of a vast difference there is between the north and the south. I was frustrated because, their problems were, disruption to school because they're building new schools and putting new additions on their buildings. And our frustrations are we're struggling to find money to do any kind of updates to move our schools into the future. So, I feel your pain when you talk about our small schools. And that's pretty much all I've got, unless somebody's got some questions.
Any questions for Todd?
Any questions? I know I hope I answered the questions about the boiler update. I think somebody had some concerns. So Lane wanted me to speak a little bit about that, but I can assure you that the boiler itself, that project went off without a hitch. We're working. Hopefully we got those other things. Craig was very happy with the tech that was there, and we got those issues, except for the cafeteria squared away, and they're going to work on fixing those.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Yep.
Still no auditor? No, yeah, he's getting a little frustrated. He's emailing me going, yeah. then that leads us to you.
Yay.
So speaking of drafts, it's
Yes.
that window, because when I walked over there, it is like blowing through and it's shut and locked. No, it's your shade, I don't have those in my house.
We see what's possible. Door drop.
Yeah.
Put it inside.
My feet actually hurt. Yeah, so it's like, we get to the end and he's here, I'll email him. Two things before I get into my brief report I had. I spoke with Frank Jewett, who is helping us with the PFAS. I met with him a couple weeks ago, I guess, because we were sitting on some bills while we wait for our loan grant process to happen. And he actually got approval for us to go ahead and get those paid. So that was really nice. In that process, what we're waiting for in order to complete this so that we can go out to bid to do this project is an environmental report to make sure that we will not be disturbing any wildlife as we pipe underground over to us. And then as far as I know, the town of Mount Holly still has not signed off on it. I reached out to our lawyer right after I spoke with him, and I haven't heard back from the lawyer yet either. So it's a document, something, a deed, a warranty deed or something that they have to sign in order for us to be able to use the property. We need that. That's filed in the books to send to the loan people so they know that we have permission with the town to do this. So we're waiting on those two things, and then hopefully that we'll get the loan done. Once we get the loan done, then we can go out to bid. So that's the process on that. The other little piece of information I wanted to share with you, and this is more, not that this is going to happen, but just a perspective on it. Yesterday, the Ways and Means Committee met, and I got a breakdown of what they were proposing. And the current proposal on the table, doesn't mean it's going to happen, was to transfer $77.2 million from the general fund into the education fund to help offset the taxes. And so it brings the yield up less than $200 and has a 2-cent tax impact on us. So in order to have a significant tax impact, there has to be a lot more money added to that budget. That's likely not going to happen. But it moves slightly. So I don't expect any big change. And anyway, we've had to report our budgets to the states, what we expect that we'll need from the general state support grant. And that's the information that they use to drive all these scenarios. And hopefully they come out something that's positive for us. So the financial for January is in the folder. I really don't have anything right now. We're a bit below. We've spent 46.39% of the budget. I would expect it to be about 58% at this point. However, we still have the second half tuition to come in. And then also summer pay for teachers is a big portion of that budget. So I'm happy where we are. Other questions? Yeah, good. All right. We do have the second read of the internal student transfer policy. Did anybody have comment on that? Do you want to make a motion, we approve it, or what are people's thoughts?
Yeah, I'll move we approve it.
All right, anybody want to second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any other discussion about the internal elementary limited school transfer program? All those in favor of approving it as presented? Anybody opposed? Perfect. Settle that. Then budget outreach. So it sounds like from our board comments earlier, Lane is moving forward with some social media outreach. PTG is looking to help in both schools, I assume.
Lane is also putting together some media, real old-fashioned traditional media. I don't know what we call it anymore. Is there more that people have thought about? Is there something else?
Just, I think one of the things is like the pamphlets, like how we go about getting the supplies for that, like how does that even work? Let's just report back to PTG.
Yeah, so yeah, the board can pay for a flyer that says to vote, but not how to vote, right, with information. We already send it out in the informational booklets, so that's one thing. A one-sheet flyer in the past has cost like $3,000 to $5,000, right?
I don't think it's quite that high.
It's not quite that high.
Talking about mailing it?
It was more of like going out to the local businesses, bringing it to the senior center, just handing them out on parent pickup line, just somehow getting it.
You don't mail it.
Right. So, is that, how are we gonna get the information on that? That would be a.
Right, so like.
I don't put money in.
You're not hanging there.
Have it be like, like key points, short.
Right,
short,
I would probably share what we did we did one last year at some point.
I think
I probably have
frequently asked
that.
questions.
Right, and then I know we did, a couple of frequently asked questions that we posted sporadically online. I don't know how often they were seen. I know some other community members created some as well that might have been seen more. But if we're talking about a piece of paper, I think it would just be important to make sure the information's accurate. I don't mind going back through that frequently asked questions thing and updating it with appropriate numbers. I'm not good at finding them always. And
If you have the language, then we can verify.
put the numbers in, okay. And then those can start going out. If I share them with Lane, they can go on the district website, social media. And then as people see them, the hope would be that they would do their thing.
Because we've already seen some posts already that people are gonna send a message from up here and they're voting no.
Right.
Which is not appears when you're not here.
It's a hard thing. I also have some other, I don't know where, it's sort of emotional, so I would have to rewrite it and take the emotion out of it, I think, but some sort of explanation about what the budget might look like under the governor's proposal. And I don't know that this is the time to do that, but I also don't know that it's not the time to do it.
The hard thing about that is there's just
It's
too many
speculative,
unknowns.
right. So I don't mind doing the FAQs and updating them because I have them. I don't mind trying to find the brochure from last year and getting it to you, and we can update that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if somebody can print it, if it's just a simple flyer, that's usually easy to do. Does that kind of cover bases at the moment? The signs, just don't put them on public property, please.
I think at the central office.
What's that?
Signs are there.
I think they're at the central office. Deb, do you have any at the school? No, Craig, you don't?
No,
I think
No, we
there's,
returned them all to the central office last year.
same.
yeah. Well, some of them have a date on them, and
Right, mine
the
has a
company
date
that
on
we
it.
got them from said that they could print a sticker to change the date on. Kelly may be able to help us remember where we got them.
Yeah, I was thinking on the brochure,
Oh, not me, Kelly.
Not you, Kelly.
English. There's no remembering that.
On the brochure, I'll have her reach out to the person we used for the annual report to see what it would cost to go on the brochure.
Yeah, the signs can't go on public property, but in like, the brochure, if it's okay with the, like, it's okay with the business to have like on their
It
window,
can go on,
their door.
a business is private property,
Yeah.
so it can go anywhere except
This place.
where my husband's gonna have to pick it up and yell at me. Let's put it right out there blatantly. It cannot go on the green, it cannot go on next to like sidewalks, it cannot go near fire hydrants, it cannot go. There is a town ordinance, it's not his fault, he just has to follow the rule. There is a town ordinance about it being on public property. If you live on Main Street or by Dorsey Park and you want to put 85 signs on your lawn, or you have a family member that owns a business in the center of town and you want to put them there, that's their
Can I
prerogative.
have that sign? When you walk with that.
Yeah, when I buy my new car next week, I will look for it.
Yeah, I'll get those signs.
But they cannot be on town property. That is the rule I have to follow.
Where, how will the signs be distributed? I live on a pretty well-traveled road, and I had one last year. And then someone came and picked it up at some point after the vote was over, which I assume means it's in the central office, but I would put one on my yard again.
Yeah, I did that, Julie. I went around and got them all and brought them down.
We'll pull I made a note and we'll pull them out tomorrow or Friday and then figure out how to update the ones that need to be updated. Because I think there's some just saying, please vote.
Right, I think we have the second round,
Mine says vote yes on this one.
Then yours probably did not come from the school.
right.
Where did it come from? I don't know where it came from.
PTG might, or a group,
PTG.
an outside group might have paid for those. The
Yeah.
school board and the school cannot
Right.
tell you how to vote, just to vote, please. So I would caution board members about using those, but if we have them and other people are willing, then I don't think there's a problem if neighbors want to use those. And we can get those maybe to the schools in the next soon, because March is close.
Well, vacation this week, so we'll have to do that.
All right. All right, other thoughts about outreach, communication?
I think something that was really effective last year in Mount Holly was just like grassroots word of mouth. So just making sure that we're all, and I know we're not allowed to tell people how to vote, and there's fine lines, with being on the board, but I think it's a low turnout in general. So I think if we're just reaching out, have as many conversations as we can as individuals and just say, there's a vote this day, make sure you get out and vote. It's really important.
And I also think one of the things that we were a little bit remiss on last year was people are used to somebody speaking at the town meetings because in the past, that is how we did it. We have not done it that way since the restructuring of the school because our informational meeting is ahead of that. But I think Dave Venter and I spoke at Mount Holly. I don't think anybody spoke in Ludlow. And I think that was poor planning on our part. And I think we should make sure that somebody's willing to get up and just say a few words and answer any questions that people have at each town meeting. And I'm certainly generally able to go to Mount Holly's unless there's something happening in Maine that I need to be at. And then I won't be there. But I should be there. So I'm willing to do it if somebody from Ludlow is willing to speak in front of a crowd in Ludlow and answer any questions.
We had also talked last year because in Mount Holly, a lot of people don't even know that there's a vote unless they drive down the street and they see our tiny little sign that says vote today from 10 to 7. And so there was somebody who had volunteered to make a gigantic sign and put it closer to 103. So maybe that's something that we could, think about too, doing again this year is, I think we had a huge car wash sign. So it's just a matter of like painting it over and painting a new.
I think you were right, Katie, especially for the subsequent votes last year. I think most people, and cross my fingers, know the first vote because it's right after town meeting, but it certainly doesn't hurt to put a sign up to remind people. It just can't be, there's a rule about the town hall and it can't be within a certain feet. So you have to put it at the end of the road, I think. But you can check with Carol and she'll let you know.
I would think closer to 103 would be better than.
Blinking light.
Yeah. All right. So everybody's got a little job and we'll move forward.
So is it appropriate for us as individuals to write a letter to the chit chat or the journal to say vote yes?
As long as you don't represent yourself.
Right. As long as I make clear that I'm writing as me and not on behalf of the board, right? I think I'm inclined to do that to the two.
Yeah. So you could just write your name. So if I wrote a letter and I just wrote my name and no title underneath the name, then that's fine, right?
Or Dave, the last time you wrote a letter in the chit chat, you just had a little disclaimer at the bottom that said, I'm writing as an individual. I think that is sufficient.
I think like, maybe even saying, while I am a member of the school board, my personal beliefs are I am not currently representing the board is fine. I just don't want that to make something turn contentious. People are finding anything to be upset about these days, and I'm just careful about it, that's all. Yeah. All right. And we've talked about the boiler. Are there other thoughts or questions or comments about that? All right. TRSU board report. We canceled our meeting because of weather, and then I was grumpy and said I would not meet on a Friday. So we haven't met yet.
Monday.
Monday?
We'll see Monday.
That's because all the other days.
I'll be less cranky on a Monday for sure. On a Friday, that's Valentine's Day, no less. Right, the day before vacation.
So, can I ask if the TRSU would consider joining the
I can bring it up under board, or Katie or Julie, one of us can bring it up under the board comment section. Policy committee, anybody have anything? Nothing going on there? No. Jamie and Maria, nothing? No. Facilities, we've not met, haven't had the need at the moment. Policies approved, just the internal school choice, what do we call it? Officialness. Limited school transfer program. Final public comments?
As board comments, I know it's not listed. Nancy?
Yeah, you're also.
So I decided not to rerun for board member because of a couple of different reasons. I am honored to be here and I love being here. But it's hard, it's difficult to rerun every year. I wish that they were longer, not too long.
Right.
3 years to 5 years, because, well, it's always good to refresh, but once you get settled in, then I have to go and rerun again. And so mine has been every year, it's been 3 years, but every year I have to rerun and get names. It's like I have to ask for people to vote for me. I don't like to ask that. I like, that's a personal thing. But and also my daughter goes to Green Mountain, so I want to concentrate more on going to those meetings, being there, and I don't like missing any games because she's in every single sport, and I want to be more involved. And like I was involved with Ludlow and PTG, and I was involved as much as I could, and I'm trying to be more involved there. So those are my reasons. I still am signing, the warrants every 2 weeks. I'll still continue to do that. And I don't know when that stops.
In March.
Yeah.
So it would be soon. Okay. And then I obviously will contact the House of Representatives to come to our March
Jill,
meeting,
thank you.
obviously, for our county. Because there's a lot. There's 150.
And it's not just our county,
So our
right? Because
county is
we're
not that many.
multiple
Yeah,
counties technically, right?
Yeah, but our county is a little smaller than that, so we can contact all of them. But, yeah, so I just want to say that I should have said it earlier, but I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And I certainly support doing family things first, which is why I said no to a Friday and Valentine's Day. Other comments?
I'm emailing the auditor, asking.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I was gonna ask that next. Unless he wants to meet with Lane on Friday and Valentine's Day. Next meeting for us, is it really March 20th?
No.
No, that can't be, because we're the second Wednesday,
I'll check
that can't be
Yeah,
right.
I'll double check.
Unless there's some weird reason.
The other meeting.
Right, I was gonna say, and we have to have,
Should be the 12th.
yeah, I don't have a calendar, so I can't.
So
So we have to have February 12th is our regular meeting.
March.
Sorry, March, thank you. March 12th will be our regular meeting. But we also will have our informational meeting, which is the week before voting. Has that been?
You signed the warning.
Right, and it's been put out. I just know the transition between Kelly and Lane and Sydney, and I wanna just,
We'll double check in the morning.
okay. Info meeting is just for the public. It is here, no, it's in Mount Holly this year on February 25th at, what time did we say, 7?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, at 6 o'clock. So informational meeting about the budget, February 25th, 6 o'clock, Mount Holly, probably in the gym. Have it set up that way, usually that works better.
Not really.
Well, but it depends on people, right,
Yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
Kelly's right, but we don't tend to do a lot.
right,
The thing that you were trying to say before is people go to the town.
right, right,
So, and superintendents used to do that.
right.
And now
Right.
get a lot of positive, especially the way you explain it. So,
Yeah, probably, I actually had Kelly put them in, they're on the same days we have other meetings. So that was the killer this year.
And then our regular board meeting will be after the vote on March 12th, which will then also be in Mount Holly.
That's your transition.
That'll be our usual, right, and,
Restructuring.
right, so for a while, we were meeting like a half an hour early on those nights, but we don't have to do that anymore, do we? Yeah, we used to for some reason, I don't know why.
Sorry, can you clarify, the vote is what day in March?
I don't know because my phone has gone wonky. Thank you.
March 4th.
First Tuesday in March, right?
Okay.
And that would be at your respective town halls. I think they're all in our district open 10 to 7. I think that's right. I think that's right. And then the other quick thing I would like people, and obviously this is gonna change a bit in March, but I would like people to look at the committee matrix and say, yes, that is what I expected to see. I was gonna say TRSU would be great, and also RVTC. Because I don't know who the alternate is for the RVTC, and I probably should. What? The tech, yeah, I go. And their meeting is tomorrow night at 7 in Springfield. I don't remember who was the alternate, to be honest. I'd have to go back and look. But if we can just add that to this matrix and then, we'll have to update it again in March. I feel like we just updated it, so it'll probably be fairly easy, but
And then, who will be the representative for the White House?
yes.
That'll be also be a committee.
Right, yeah, thank you.
I always say, if someone wants to run as a write-in, then you don't have to run again the following year, right?
Right, if you get in,
If you get in as a write-in, then you get the whole term,
right,
right? Whereas if some, and that's how I got in the beginning, so I didn't have to do it the following year.
right,
Whereas if you get appointed, then you have to do it again the following
right.
March.
Like Katie and
So if
Katie
there's somebody,
have to do it. You both got yours in, right? Okay, yeah, so you didn't because you were late last year, and so you had to be a write-in. I remember that now that Dave says.
well, yeah, no,
Every year it's been a year.
it's
Every year
the,
it's been 1 year.
yeah, it was just bad luck. I mean, it's a 3-year term, but the 3-year term starts
Once you're elected.
this year, all right? If you ran now.
So
you
if I
would-
did it now, it would have been 3 years, but all the other years it was 1 year, 1 year, 1 year.
I think it was just luck of the draw, the way, because you came in to replace somebody and then you had to be reelected, and then that term was over and you had to be reelected, and then I think we forgot to remind you, and so I think it's that piece
That's
of
why.
it.
But you can't
yeah.
get rid of that for the future.
Yeah, that shouldn't be the case.
For other
Right.
people.
We used to have 1-year seats and 3-year seats, but now they're all 3.
Yeah,
Correct
that's
me if
good.
I'm wrong, right?
Yeah.
They are, but they're staggered.
Right, right. So it depends.
Right, because they depend on when the people came in, so they're all.
Is anybody else running in Ludlow?
No, not on the ballot.
Not that I've heard in either town.
Yeah, no, I took a picture of the ballot
Oh, you
yesterday.
haven't? All right.
Jen, you're got a petition in, right?
Yes. I handed it in like mid-January.
All right. And then you guys will again have to do it in 26 too. You'll be the same votes for until you get cycled through. Okay.
So,
All right.
Well, before, last year they did put what town people were from on the ballot. And it was kind of confusing. People didn't know people, so they just did.
All right. Board members are given and have read the agenda, and, well, I assume we can move on to this. Sorry, I should ask.
I think they have to table the
Oh, right.
agenda.
Yeah.
Is this like continuation of this?
Yes, I think it's just oddly, no, February 12th is right. No, March 12th, you're right. Yes. Jamie just noticed that the agenda actually copied on just above our matrix. Oddly, it's not on this big blank space, so I missed it, sorry. And the date of the meeting is incorrect. It needs to say March 12th, 2025 in Mount Holly at 6 p.m.
It
This
does
is an
say
A and
that,
B.
it just doesn't say Mount Holly.
In A, the date's
A?
wrong.
Right.
In
A,
B,
well,
it's a date that's gone by.
right.
It's.
Right, so both are wrong for a lot of reasons. And it's not just me.
We're here.
Yeah, I think probably they were cutting and pasting and something wonky happened, but I didn't catch it because it was on
Probably
the
one of
other
the
page.
first agendas that Sydney did, so.
Yeah, yeah.
We learned.
No, totally understandable. All right, so we have the meetings and we'll get them correct. Board self-evaluation, are we good to go on there? All right, we have been given and read the agenda, background materials prior to the meeting. Board members are respectful of each other, the public, and the administration. We did very good. Board members handled conflict openly and constructively. Board members focus on the role and responsibility of the board. Board members act as a team once a decision has been made and work collaboratively throughout the decision-making process. Okay.
So,
That's okay. I was gonna say the most fun thing of the night, so speak before I say that.
That's not.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, who wants to make a motion?
So we adjourn. I move.
Someone second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll celebrate.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.